Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Stench of Truth. And it is pretty smelly around here. I think it is time once again, because of the new indictments that come down, to take a look once again at the Penn State scandal involving Jerry Sandusky, who has already been convicted of multiple counts of child molestation and related charges. Now, it has taken another year, which is a complete fucking farce, if you ask me, to charge the officials at Penn State with crimes. And now we have 3 new indictments against the former president, Graham Spannier, and the 2 lesser folks, Curley and Shultz. Both of which are charged with perjury and failure to report crimes and charges related to that, in association with Sandusky and the what is now being regarded quite rightly by the Attorney General's office in Pennsylvania as a cover-up, as an attempt to preserve the reputation of a fucking child predator. Jerry Sandusky. Everything that these people did was designed to hide this motherfucking sack of shit and preserve their own fucking reputations. And I think it's particularly galling that Spannier would come out, as he did some months past, with this story of his own abuse as a child in an effort to win some kind of support for himself, in the face of coming charges against him, as if to say, look, I was a victim of abuse myself. I certainly would not condone such behavior. Well, that's statistically not fucking true. And even if that was not the case, it's even worse whenever you have an abuse victim becoming an abuser. Because it perpetuates a fucking cycle where children are made into horrible husks of what they should become in life. And it is absolutely atrocious. As I've mentioned before, 2 things that absolutely make me freak the fuck out is whenever people abuse animals and children. Because both are completely fucking defenseless against the human fucking monsters that would fucking use them. And let me add that this does not go nearly far enough. But I imagine that putting a couple of upper echelon people like they did on the chopping block here, the former president and these 2 other people, Shultz and Curley, that they will put a stop to any more investigation into this. They will not look at Second Mile, and they certainly will not look at the office of the current fucking governor, Tom fucking piece of shit Corbett, who was the Attorney General, dragging his fucking feet and not doing a proper investigation of this. Allowing Second Mile to dissolve, and hopefully now wishing and praying that all of this will go away. Because I guarantee you that fucking cocksucker in fucking Harrisburg is fucking guilty of something too. Putting the blocks on this fucking investigation, and now he's a fucking governor and he's passing a bunch of God-forsaken bullshit. But I imagine this is going to put an end to this investigation, even though you can guarantee, because of allegations by some of the victims of Jerry the fucking piece of shit Sandusky, that people were shuttled around and provided with children. This was exactly the same kind of thing as conspiracy of silence, the so-called Page Boy scandal at the White House, and the same kind of thing that was going on at the Franklin Savings and Loan. And this is the kind of thing that is happening everywhere. Now, what else do we see come out in the news? Jimmy Savile, a noted BBC personality, all kinds of allegations and charges coming out against him related to child molestation and child endangerment, as well as charges of necrophilia as well. And we have seen so far Gary Glitter and Freddie Starr both being implicated in some way in this, at least being questioned in connection to it. You know, here you have a guy, Jimmy Savile, very so-called respected in the BBC, and supposedly with very high-level connections with the royalty and everybody else. Now, do you suppose that any of these fucking people knew what the fuck this fucking cocksucker was doing? I guarantee it. I guarantee it. But how far will this probe go? How far will it lead? Will it rake up a couple of has-been celebrities like Glitter and Starr and think that's enough to close this down? Or will they have to throw a couple of higher-ups on the pyre like they did at Penn State? Well, one thing I could tell you is if Savile is guilty of these charges, that motherfucker needs to fucking burn. Burn, 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 burn in hell. And I'm sure that's the fate that is waiting Sandusky as well, because if there is a hell, one thing you can guarantee is that motherfuckers like these are the ones that are going to fucking go there. And I'll tell you this much, there have been a lot of rumors over the decades and centuries about royalty being involved in this kind of thing. The pedophilia, child molestation, and even child murder. And having someone with some degree of clout, like this fucking sack of shit Jimmy Savile, with connections to royalty, being implicated in pedophilia and child molestation and necrophilia charges, certainly brings that back into the forefront. How many of these inbred motherfucking jag-off assholes in the royal family and all of their attendant various government agencies and everything else that they have their fucking greasy motherfucking hands in, how many other people are involved in this? And I would venture to say that this is going to turn into another pedophilia child molestation ring operating in Great Britain, where they take these poor defenseless children and they fucking prostitute them out to their rich and famous buddies. This is a motherfucking travesty. And if you cannot get justice when it comes to pedophilia and endangering fucking minors, I don't know what kind of fucking justice system you have anywhere in this fucking twisted, fucked up world. And to think that there are people that call themselves fucking human beings that will try to cover this shit up. Fuck the victims and try to cover up for their perverted, sick, fucking asshole buddy who's doing this. And maybe they're even involved themselves. Don't even call yourself a fucking human being, jackass. Why don't you go fucking slit your fucking wrists right now? Because you're no good to anybody alive. You're just a pathetic piece of shit. Thank you. Good night.